I'm sure you can tell this video is going to be about math. No, wait, don't go. Don't worry, I won't let this get complicated. I've always been open about how bad at math I am, but that's okay because game design math isn't the same as normal boring math. In fact, in game design, you can pretty much do anything you want as long as the end result is fun. For example, I've always had a huge hype bar in my game with glowing lights, even though hype can't be really measured on a scale of 1 to 100. I mean, obviously there are only so many lights on the bar, so hype can only go up so far. So I made hype a number between 0 and 100%, but it doesn't have to be. And then there are experts in my game that can raise stats like hype. So what happens if the hype is at 60% and the description of one of the experts says it raises hype by 10%? Is it just a flat increase, so 60% hype plus 10% equals 70% hype? Or is it increased by 10% of the existing 60%, which is 6%, making the total 66% hype? Something that complicates it even more is that I changed my UI so the player can now see the calculations happening each day. So now hype pops up and it's adjusted by any experts that have the right ability. And what I was seeing after that adjustment wasn't 70% or 66%. It was actually 64%. This started a journey where I went back and forth between the three answers for a long time, because all three of them could arguably be right, and each one could change the experience of playing the game. Let's start with the weird one. Where did 64% come from? Well, this was actually from a calculation I picked up writing for Choice of Games, and it's called Fair Math. One problem with the other two answers is that you can actually go above 100%. Like, if you have 95% hype and add a flat 10%, you get 105%. Likewise, if you have 95% hype and add 9.5%, which is 10% of 95, you get 104.5%. What Fair Math does is it adds 10% of what's left to 100%. So if we have 95% and add 10% of the remaining 5%, we get 95.05%. That might seem like nothing, but in the earlier example, the difference is larger. So 60% hype plus 10% of the remaining 40% is 64%. With this method, the closer you are to 100%, the smaller the change, and you'll never have anything above 100%, and that can be useful. It's important, especially when you have a bar in your UI showing the hype level. You don't want that bar to overflow, right? And Fair Math is useful in situations where you want it to be harder for the player to make gains as the game goes on. It puts a natural difficulty curve in place. But I realized that once you start showing these numbers to the player, they're going to get mad, because nobody's going to think 64% adds up. It might make sense in some situations, but the way I had my UI set up to show these numbers was not one of those situations. I wanted to know what the player would expect, so I asked Reddit, and a lot of people had strong opinions. There were a ton of very confident answers that all disagreed with each other, but virtually nobody said it should be 64%. Most people said it should be 70%, and that also feels instinctively right to me, if not mathematically. The reasoning here is that everyone hates math, and they just want to see nice flat numbers adding together. This is the psychological approach to game design that's become pretty popular these days. The theory is that our brains like rewards better than penalties, and bigger rewards are better. That's definitely true. Number go up is the key to an addictive game, and it's a guiding principle of my game in particular. Some people are even so convinced this was the correct answer that they said mathematicians would confirm it. I don't know about that, because there were also quite a few people who said ditch the percent symbol and just call it points or something. Their reasoning was that if it was any other stat, like strength, a 10% increase would just be 66 strength. And that made me realize that by putting that little percent sign, I was converting hype to percent units. There's nothing wrong with that, but hype isn't the only stat in my game. In fact, there are a lot of other stats, and they are not measured in percents. Max sales is one of them. It's a flat number, and it's measured in dollars. So if max sales was $60 and I wanted to add 10%, would it make $70? No, that wouldn't make any sense because percent and dollars aren't the same unit. The only answer is $66. And I think players actually instinctively know that. And that's how my other experts work. There are experts that increase max sales by 20% and they use the 66 logic. So I think I should use the same math on every stat, because I think in this case consistency is more important to players than perceptions. And players can definitely be wrong about what they want. Even though the majority of answers on Reddit said I have to go with 70%, I think they would know something's off when they actually played the game if it wasn't 66. You can make a system for any of the three answers in your game. There are games with all three answers, some of them in the same game. But the key is that they're consistent in how those rules are applied. Or at least they should be. So for now, hype is measured in hype points, and it's only converted to a percent when it combines with max sales to tell us our sales for the day. And it's capped at 100, so I can still have a huge hype bar to make fun of the game industry, but I've already made an expert called Awards Host who doubles that cap. Then other experts like Auteur can multiply that base number far above its cap, and sales can go to the moon. Because what's most important at the end of the day aren't the numbers, it's the fun. Wishlist AAA Simulator. Link in the description. Thanks for watching.